Hey, what up, dude? What up, dude? Heard you been talking shit. Oh, my little thing is messed up here. Hold up. Gotta fix this. Move that shit out the way, cuz. Alright, that's a little better. Alright, how y'all doing today? What is today? Wednesday? Yeah, I tell you Wednesday, dude. We're so fucking close. I can taste that sh. I can taste that sh. I can taste that sh. 6:18 Wednesday, starting at 12. We're gonna go for an hour basically, and you know, we're going to continue where we left off. Where else? Like, what else would we do? Duh. And yesterday, what did we do? Well, we had began converting all DB connection related code to use instance adder connections and cursors instead of using with clause context managed database cons, since this was recommended due to the fact that we are using it persistently, aka we're using it a lot. Stop to line 199. We're gonna restart our extensions, baby. There we go. Extensions restarted. And me, a little bit highly regarded in my field. Okay, let's just say that. All right, so we're going to continue. So we're gonna say continue. 12. 13 to whenever we're done. Because you can all DB related code, use instance adder consequences of using with, blah, 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 blah. Alright, so let's go back over here to 199. There it is. That's where we stopped. Why this popped up. I don't know. Realtek USB wireless LAN utility. I don't know what that is popped up for, and it will not close. So, you know, some problems you just don't look at them and then they go away, right? Some problems you just don't address them and then they fade off into the distance. Can see it disappearing right now into the horizon. All right, boys. Post that shit, cuz. Post that shit, cuz. Alright, there we go. There he is. The doofus. There he is. Look at him. Man. Don't lie. You're a dumbass, ain't you? Alrighty then, baby. Let's go over here. 199. Picking up where we left off. What did we do? We stopped here. What are we doing here? Okay, we're doing a DB project search. So what we need to do is close all this other close all this other and yeah, let's see right here, baby. Let's see right here, baby. Get that while true. Alright, so we're gonna do Control Shift DB. And we can just go ahead, well, we'll just let it do its thing. All these temp files. Temp files, baby. I need to get back on my game, right? Okay, while true runs until new DB verified not corrupted. With SQLite 3 Connect. Okay, so yeah, we're not gonna do this anymore. We're not gonna use the context manage with. So what we're gonna do is instead we will say target cursor Because DB. Okay, so ooh. Okay, I see what's going on here. So we have a target path. We are using this target path to access that path. Then we're going to vacuum into that path. So we have while true. And what this would do okay, so we want to get rid of this line here, and what we're going to do instead is we have to use the target path to connect to the proper database. What we really want here is to connect to the target database. But what we have is the target path. So let's see about this. So I guess we could do a check on the target path. I think that would be like really the only way to do this, unless we modified what this function received as far as arguments. Instead of getting the target path, we would just pass the target DB. But then, like, the whole point of this function is to check the path to make sure it exists. Because we have to remove the path to vacuum into the path. So we have to have the path, because that does need to happen for the database to be copied. So I don't think we would get rid of the target path arg. That would remain. Okay. So this seems like the proper method. And why do we have this ending with a semicolon? I don't know exactly why. I'm not sure, my dudes. Anyway. Self-cursor execute vacuum into target path while true. Yeah, so we have to keep the path. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to derive the database from the path. And we could... I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. We can just use an if. We could have a dictionary that links those two paths, the path to the database, but like, do we really need that? Is it really that critical? You know, let's just. Not all code has to be down to the microsecond perfect. You know, technically a dictionary would probably be more performant. Fuck it, we'll just make a dictionary. It's like the same thing, right? We'll say target. We'll say path to db dict, and then it's gonna be so the two paths that get passed here are the only ones that get passed are stable and stable backup. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, we don't call this function passing the save data path. We just use stable and then backup. So what we're going to do is we're going to say path to dbdict equals self dot save data stable path, and that is going to map to the value, which is going to be self dot db, okay, db stable, right? So we have save data stable path is mapped to self.db stable, and then we have self.save data stable backup path is going to be mapped to, why do we not have a space right there? That's much better. Self.save data, no, we need to put db stable backup. Yes, we have self save data stable path is mapped to self.db stable, and then we have self save data stable backup path mapped to self.db stable backup database, and that is the path to dbdict, right? Where the key is key equals path val equals associated db. All right, and then instead of using this with, what code are we going to get rid of? Well, we're at least going to get rid of this with, which means we're going to get rid of this target cursor and db equals none. So we're going to space that out to separate it. And now this up here is going to be the new version of that code, which is going to say well, all we really need to say is target cursor, because we need the target cursor to do a pragma integrity check on the database to make sure that it's not corrupted. Okay, yeah, I see what's going on here. Of course it messed up the indentation. And target cursor is going to be, well, we're then going to say db equals path to dbdict at the key, and what the key is going to be the target path. Yeah, look at you being all clever and shit. So we got db equals path to db dictionary at the target path, baby. That is wonderful. Now, so that will give us our database. Then our cursor, we call it target DB. I mean, yeah, that's fine. We'll call it target DB, just to clarify. I thought someone was running up on me. I thought somebody would run up on me, dude. Target DB equals path to dbdict at target path. Then we have target cursor, which is equal to target db.cursor. But we don't need a new cursor. We can just use the cursor that already exists. So we need that cursor, dude. So we'll have a tuple here. And this path will link to the database and then the associated cursor. So we'll say self.cursor, no. No. self cursor stable. So we'll have self cursor stable. Right here. So we have self DB stable linked to self cursor stable in this tuple. Then we have self save data stable backup path linked to that database as the first element of the tuple, and the second would be self dot cursor stable backup. Okay, so now we would say target db equals path to db dict at target path at index 0, and then the target cursor is going to be, like, do we even need the target db at all, or do we just need the cursor? Target cursor equals path to db dict at target path at index 1. So yeah, do we even need the actual database? Because all we really need is the cursor. We don't actually need to reference the database itself, right? We have the target path. We check to see if the path exists. If it does, we remove it. Then we copy into the target path. But wait a second. Doesn't that delete? I feel like that deletes. It does. Since we're doing an OS remove on the target path, and that's a requisite to do vacuum into, doesn't that mean that the actual database itself, the DB connection, is gone? Like, yeah, because like we just deleted the whole file. So it seems to me that the reference, the connection there would be gone. Let's see about that. Because in this case, whenever we do OS remove, we may have to recreate and reassign the self DB. Yeah, because if we have the connection created here, and then we remove that path, I feel like that is gonna sever the connection. I'm not 100,000% sure on that, but let's check this. Let's say Python SQLite 3. If we use, if we create DB connection and then create cursor and then do os path dot remove on DB path, will the var referencing the con and cursor still be valid after new con, or after new DB under same name is recreated? Yeah, I feel like the answer is no. If you create independent with SQLite 3, if you create a connection and cursor to a database file, delete the file and disk using OS remove, then recreate a new database with the same name, The original con and cursor objects remain valid in memory and so be used until you close them. They still point to the original, now unlinked file in use by the process. See, like what do you operate normally on that in-memory file, even though the file has been deleted from disk. If you create a new database file on disk with the same name, it will be completely separate in a new database. The original con and cursor won't suddenly start referencing this new file. If you close the original connection and try to reopen using the same file name, you'll be connected to the new empty database. So you have con, cursor, blah blah blah, then con commit. When you do OS remove, on test DB, step 3, query still works. Select all from test. Fetch all. So we'll create a new file with the same name. Gotcha. Okay, so this connection is severed upon os.remove.exists or os.path.remove rather. Well, no, the connection still remains, but it starts saving to in memory instead of to that file. Okay, true. We got this. Okay, so I would have to manually close using con close because we're not using context managers. So we would close the connection, then we would remove. Oh shit, I forgot to set my timer. Let's see, we're at 27, so we need to go to 41. Alright, so this is a little bit more complicated. This is not terrible. But for this to be nice and clean, what we would need to do probably, which sucks because we just moved this, would be to we would probably want to place this inside of a function so that we can set up the journal mode and the synchronous. We don't really need to do that because I think really the only place that's going to be done, the OS path remove, is in that one function. So like we could probably leave this, even though this is technically only going to be temporary. That's still fine to do like that. So we need to close that. Let's go down here. So we have the path to DB dict. We have the target DB. And we do need to close that connection. And that's the same thing. The connection is the quote-unquote DB. So the self DB is this SQLite 3 connect. So what we need to do, just a reminder, isolation level equaling none enables auto commit. So we need to close this con. So we do need the target DB. And then we would say target DB close. Because we're closing that old one. Well, that would actually happen in a different place. That would happen up here. So we would move this. Gotta be careful here. I want to do this right. We have the target path. And the first thing we want to do is create a dict which maps the target path to the current dbcon and the associated cursor. Yeah, I don't think we'll need the cursor here. We would just say, so we wouldn't need the tuple probably. Okay. If target path is equal to self.save data stable path. If the target path is equal to the self.save data stable path, just think about that. Self.db stable equals SQLite3 connect target path isolation level equal none. Cursor stable, okay, equals self.db stable.cursor. Alright. dbok is equal to target cursor execute pragma integrity check. So in this case we would have to assign target cursor again. So then we would say target cursor equals self.cursor stable. And then we would do dbok, and here we do else, which is saying elif target path is equal to self.save data stable backup path, and then we would do this self.db stable backup cursor stable backup self.db stable backup target cursor would be and then we do dbok. Okay, yeah, so this is completely different now. It's kind of confusing a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. A little bit confusing here. Yes, so we have, instead of with SQLite3 connect, taking target path isolation level, we're not using a target cursor as db cursor. We're actually recreating the db con through a SQLite3 connect line through self.db stable or self.db stable backup equals, and then we're creating the cursor. And we do have to reassign these two because they're going to be used, you know, later on in the save process. These are now the new version of the self-DB stable, self-cursor stable. As I'm thinking about this though, I am realizing, as I'm refactoring this rather, I think that since we're gonna be basically copying, since we're going to be copying the stable into the in the stable backup, that means we're going to be deleting the path and recreating it. So I'm just like, if we're going to be recreating the path each time, then why wouldn't we just use the context manager? This is kind of a piss off, I'm not gonna lie. This is aggravating me because now I'm like, well, actually, if we're gonna be deleting, which we are, to do vacuum into, to create copies of it, we have the base form of the base path, then we have the stable, and then stable backup paths. And what we do is we copy the base path into the stable and stable backup paths, and to do that we have to delete them. And since we're deleting them and recreating a new path at the same name, that means the old reference to that database is no longer valid. So basically what we're doing here is every time we run a save, or we hit a save checkpoint, we will be deleting these paths, aka throwing away the connection and the cursor to the DB stable and the DB stable backup. So that in and of itself means we're gonna be just throwing it away. So since we're gonna be throwing it away, and we're not gonna access this database through a connection unless we were to reconnect. That's the only time we would actually access the DB stable or the DB stable backup, other than through this process right here. So given that information, since the only way we're actually gonna refer back to it would be on a reconnect, that means that and even on a reconnect, that means we had a hard crash. So if we have a hard crash, that means we would have to reestablish the connection again, regardless. So there would be no point in not having a throwaway connection, because regardless of what happens, we're going to end up throwing away the connection to the DB stable and the DB stable backup. Once this process is done, the copying here, we're not actually going to use this connection again. The only time we use this connection is here, and that is to make the database backups. We connect to them, create a backup, and in so doing, we delete the old version before we create the new version. So there's really no reason to not use a local connection, a temporary connection using the context manager. It just makes more sense because that's what the context manager is for. It's for optimizing the database connection and closing process. So this is kind of a piss off, honestly. I'm realizing I'm gonna have to go back man, this sucks. It's not a huge issue, but it's enough of a problem to be. It's a bit aggravating. It's just smarter to use the context manager here. Yeah, because this is where we copy the DBs. The DBs get copied from the base to the stable and to the backup. So we have those three. The stable and the backup literally only get used during a reconnect if we which requires establishing a new connection. And then when this function is run, and since we're deleting the file every time this is run, if it exists, then that means we're throwing away that connection. So there's really no purpose in trying to create a long-term connection like that if it's just fucking temporary. Like, you know, it's dumb, stupid. There's no point in doing this. So I should just put it back to how it was. Straight up. I shouldn't even try to do this with this self.db stable, self-cursor stable, all that. That's just extra lines. It's more complicated. And it's just going to get thrown away. So there's no purpose. So let's undo this. I hate to say that, but yeah, we're just going to undo this completely. All these changes that we just made. We're just basically, let's see, what about this? That sucks. So basically we just wasted all that time. That was complete waste. Boo-hoo. Well, that's what happens when you didn't do it perfectly. Look at that. Oh, fuck. Well, at least I realized it. So, yeah, this is gonna stay the same. So, what does this mean? Well, ultimately, what this means is let's see, and we're not closing that connection. We do need to close that connection. Right? Yeah, if we have an open... Do we need to close this con since we're removing it? The old connection. I'll just put this as a note. This sucks. Yeah, it does suck. If OS path exists, target path this line is necessary. Or do we need to close this old path's connection, or is it already done through context manager? If it is even left open one X initially, then we would need to close it here. Yeah, so we'll figure that out. Then we have fuck. So this thing to do got totally warped. Review OS path exist code. Not sure the code is valid. The tutorials are going to have these paths in existence. You know, I'm thinking I might just revert back to... I was gonna say I might just revert back to the day before state of the project. Because that would undo all this. Like we're not gonna do DB stable and DB stable backup because this connection gets thrown away every time we delete the path. That's no longer valid. So it's literally pointless to have this. There's literally no reason to have this. So that kind of means like basically all the changes we made yesterday are no longer well, some of the changes we are going to stick with, like the fact that we don't have that function that runs at the beginning that runs this pragma setting stuff. But honestly, yeah, I'm just going to revert back. I'm going to revert back because I don't I think I just made a bad decision with this thing to do here. This conversion of all DB con related code to use instance adder cons. I forgot about the fact that they were throwaway. I don't know. It's a tough choice to make whether or not I should just revert back or should I just move forward and modify from this state. Because technically, like, the state that it was in previously was at least like stable, you know? This state right now is kind of like unstable. I usually don't ever do this, but I think honestly the best option would be to just revert back. I hate to say that. That sucks. I mean, we didn't do that much. We didn't change that much, but we did change enough to where I would just feel safer if I could just basically undo to that point in time. Because now I'm like, wait a second, this is actually not the best decision. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. We're gonna revert. So let's see, how do we do this exactly? I think we would pull. If we decided to make changes to the project, but then realized we made a mistake and we want to revert back to before those changes, and we have a previous commit /push to GitHub prior to those changes, what is the easiest, best way to revert back to that state? Fuck. Yeah, I can't believe I did that, dude. I'm pissed. I'm an idiot. I usually don't make mistakes like this, but it's not a huge deal, but it is time lost. It's okay, I needed to review some of that stuff anyway. So the easiest way to revert your project back to a previous state using Git, especially if it's already committed and pushed to GitHub, depends on whether you want to discard all current changes before you revert to your working directory to a previous commit, or you want to keep the current branch history intact and just create a commit that undoes the changes. I would like to fully revert my working directory to a previous commit. Or do I want to keep the current branch history intact and just create a commit that undoes the changes? Well, yesterday, did we finish? Yeah, I want to revert back. I just want to revert back. We're gonna do that. You want to keep the current branch history intact and just create. You want to keep the current branch history intact and just create a commit that undoes the changes. If you want to fully revert to an earlier commit, a clean slate, hard reset, local only, discards changes. We would do git reset -- hard commit hash. Then to update GitHub, if you've already pushed later commits, git push force. This is destructive. It rewrites history. Only do this if you're sure and you're the only one working on the repo or all the collaborators are aware. If you want to undo changes without rewriting history, revert the commits, save for shared repos. So then you would do git log to copy the commit hash you want to revert to. Then we would say bash git revert newest commit hash, oldest commit hash. This creates new commits that undo the changes. Copy the commit hash you want. Okay, I should probably do that. Save for collaboration preserves. If you want to restore files folders from a specific commit, not entire repo, check out specific files from old commit. Yeah, we're not doing that. I've done that before. We don't want to revert the whole repo to earlier. Well, we could do that way. I mean, I could do revert or reset. I don't know, man. Honestly, I'm like, I don't really know for sure which one I want to do. Well, I have to make a decision. If you want to fully revert to an earlier commit, hard reset, local only, discards changes. Or we would do... So do I want to erase the history? Or do I want to revert using a new commit? Like, do I basically want to hide the fact that I did this reversion? Since it's not a shared project, it doesn't actually matter. So I'm just going to do git reset dash dash hard and back to that commit hash. Okay, explain option 1 further. Okay, so in this case, we'll do, here's the explanation of option 1, hard reset, which is the most direct way to roll your project back to a previous commit. Git reset dash dash hard commit hash destructive clean slate moves your local branch's head to a previous commit. Resets your working directory and staging area to match that commit. Completely removes all changes made after that commit. Completely removes all changes made after that commit, like they never happened. If you then git push force, GitHub will reflect this rollback, erasing any commits that were pushed after that commit. So it basically just erases the future. Okay, I got you. Uses if you want to abandon all recent changes, commit it or not. You're okay with rewriting commit history for yourself or a small team. You made a mistake and just want to go back to the last known good version. Don't do this if you're on a team that you want to preserve commit history. You have uncommitted local work you don't want to lose. Yeah, like I'm fine with losing the. There might be a couple little things that I don't want to quote-unquote lose, but I would just rather do the clean. Let's just do this. So we have A, B, C, D, head main. A is the old commit. D is your latest mistake. You want to roll back to commit B. So you get the hash of the commit you want to go back to. Roll back to commit B. Get the hash of the commit you want to go back to. So we do git log dash dash 1 line. So let's see that. Let's do git log dash dash 1 line. Git log dash dash 1 line. Okay, so here's the list of our commits. We have head, new feature, Canasta, new feature. Final adjustments part 1. Begin converting. Yeah, we want to go back to this. Finish going through second final pass. I would like to go back to this one. That's the one I would like to go back to. So we're gonna copy this. Alright, so that's the commit we want to go to. So we copied the hash for the commit. Now we're going to perform the hard reset. We're going to do git reset dash dash hard and then the hash. So let's do how do you we exit out of this? Alright, so let's do git reset dash dash hard and then paste in the commit. Git reset dash dash hard, paste in the commit. So let's see if this works. Alright, there we go. Head is now at D27 FE8F. So now if we go to devlog, we are back here again to the 16th. So we basically erased yesterday's work. It's just gone at this point in time. Yeah. So we just erased yesterday's work. At this point, we're different whether you use self cursor or the context manage dbcon. Be careful and should probably. Yeah, so we fucked up at this point yesterday and decided we were gonna not use context managers, but like I didn't realize that we actually we don't want to use it's good to use context management because of the fact that we are already throwing away the stable and stable backup. We're not throwing away the self DB and self cursor, so this is already correct. Like this is safe to be used the way that we do it. So yeah, we just fucked up and now we reverted back. So unfortunately, we basically just lost an entire session. We lost an entire hour. Basically, we actually lost 2 hours of work, 2 hours and 15 minutes of work, which is not cool. That I haven't done that. This is the first time I've ever had to do that. It's not the first time I've made a mistake, obviously, but it's the first time I've had to revert back, like using that. So it was a learning process. It sucks though. We lost 2 hours of work. Oh fucking well. Life goes on. So now, since we did the git reset, we can now force push to GitHub if you had pushed those commits earlier, which we did. So we want our GitHub to reflect our local directory now, which has been reset back to that stable state or relatively stable state. So to do that, we're going to do git push origin main and then -- force. We can do just git push -- force. Git, oops. Okay, so now if we do git log one line, we see that there's the 16th, then the 12th. It literally deleted those other commits. They're gone. There's no way to get them back, which is fine. That's what we wanted. Okay, cool. So that's done. What a bummer. Made a mistake. Had to revert. It's okay. No big deal. No harm, no foul. We just continue with no stress. Lost a little bit of time. But that's life, right? Sometimes things don't work out perfectly. Just got to be more careful in the future. So I'm going to go to the gym, do my thing, blah, blah, blah. I'll be back in a little bit. We'll do another session.